Sarah Martinez wiped down the counter at Carmel's Corner Diner for what felt like the 1000th time that morning. The small California restaurant, just a few blocks from the Pacific, had been her workplace for the past 8 years. Like countless others chasing dreams in the Golden State, she had come to California with aspirations of becoming an actress. Now, at 32, those dreams felt as distant as the fog-shrouded horizon she could glimpse through the diner's salt-crusted windows. If you had asked Sarah at 18 what her life would look like at 32, she would have painted you a very different picture. Back in Prescott, Arizona, she had been the star of every high school production, the girl everyone expected to make it big. Her father, a high school janitor who raised her alone after her mother's early death, had encouraged her dreams while simultaneously fearing them. He knew the statistics, the brutal reality of the entertainment industry, but he also knew the power of hope. Every Friday night, they would watch classic films together, with westerns being their particular favorite. It was during these father-daughter movie nights that Sarah first fell in love with the magic of storytelling. The bell above the door chimed, pulling her from her reverie. The morning rush had ended, and the restaurant was nearly empty except for a couple of regulars nursing their coffee. Sarah grabbed a menu and turned to greet the new customer, only to freeze mid-step. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright morning sun, was a face she had seen countless times on screen: Clint Eastwood. In Carmel by the Sea, celebrity sightings weren't uncommon. The picturesque coastal town had long been a haven for artists, writers, and Hollywood stars seeking refuge from Los Angeles's relentless spotlight. Eastwood had even served as the town's mayor in the 1980s, transforming this sleepy artistic community into a beacon for creative souls seeking something different from the manufactured glamour of Hollywood. "Coffee, please," he said in that familiar gravelly voice, barely glancing at the menu. "And whatever breakfast special you recommend." Sarah nodded, trying to maintain her professional composure while her mind raced through every Eastwood film she'd ever watched with her father back in Arizona. Her dad, a devoted fan of westerns, had raised her on a steady diet of the good, the bad, and the ugly and unforgiven. Now, here was the legend himself, sitting in her section, asking for her recommendation. The past 8 years hadn't been kind to Sarah's dreams. She had arrived in California full of hope, armed with her savings from 3 years of waiting tables in Arizona and a letter of acceptance to a small acting school in San Francisco. The school had been expensive but promising, offering connections to the industry and regular showcases for agents. Sarah had thrown herself into her studies, taking extra voice lessons and movement classes, doing everything right, but then reality had intervened. The 2008 financial crisis hit just as she was finishing school. The showcase she had been counting on was canceled. Agents stopped coming to student productions. The industry, never exactly welcoming to newcomers, had become virtually impenetrable. As she brought his coffee, Sarah noticed something different about Eastwood. Unlike many celebrities who carried their fame like a shield, he seemed lost in thought, almost vulnerable. He stared out the window at the morning fog rolling in from the Pacific, absently stirring his coffee. Throughout his meal, Sarah provided attentive but respectful service, fighting the urge to gush about his films or ask for an autograph. She had learned long ago that celebrities who came to Carmel were usually seeking normalcy, not adoration. Her mind wandered to the acting class she had managed to join at the local community theater. It wasn't much, but it kept her connected to her passion, even if only barely. When she brought his check, Eastwood looked up at her with those piercing eyes that had commanded the silver screen for decades. "You're not from around here originally, are you?" he asked. Sarah shook her head, surprised by the personal question. "No, sir. Arizona. Came out here about 8 years ago." She hesitated, suddenly embarrassed by her failed dreams. "To try acting, actually." Eastwood nodded thoughtfully. "And how's that working out?" The question wasn't accusatory or mocking. There was genuine interest in his voice. Something about his direct yet gentle manner made Sarah open up. "Not great," she admitted with a small laugh. "Turns out there are a lot of waitresses in California who want to be actresses. I still take classes when I can afford them, but..." She gestured at her apron, letting the unfinished sentence speak for itself. What Sarah didn't mention was the toll these years had taken on her spirit. The constant rejection, the endless cycle of auditions for student films and community theater productions, the growing pressure to be realistic and give up on her dreams. She had started to believe what everyone said, that success in Hollywood was more about luck and connections than talent and determination. Eastwood was quiet for a moment, studying her with the intensity that had made him famous. "You know," he said finally, "I was a lumberjack, a lifeguard, and a piano player in a bar before I got my break. Hell, I was even fired from Universal Studios in 1959. They said I was too tall, my Adam's apple was too big, and I talked too slow." Sarah couldn't help but smile. "Really? Really?" he confirmed. "Success isn't about waiting for permission. It's about persistence and believing in yourself when nobody else does." He pulled out a pen and began writing on the back of his receipt. Sarah watched, curious but trying not to hover. When he finished, he folded the paper and handed it to her. "Thank you for the excellent service," he said, standing up. "And Sarah, don't give up on your dreams just because they're taking longer than you planned." After he left, Sarah unfolded the receipt with trembling hands. On the back was a phone number and a note. "Call this number tomorrow at 10 a.m. Ask for Patricia. Tell her Clint sent you. Everyone needs a break. Sometimes they just need someone to open the door." The next morning, with her heart pounding, Sarah called the number. Patricia turned out to be Patricia Glover, a casting director who had worked with Eastwood on several films. The conversation that followed would change the trajectory of Sarah's life forever. Patricia didn't offer her instant stardom or a leading role in a blockbuster. Instead, she offered something more valuable, an opportunity. She needed assistance for an upcoming production in Monterey, and she was willing to give Sarah a chance to work on set, to learn the industry from the ground up. The following months were a crash course in the reality of filmmaking. Sarah worked 16-hour days, running errands, managing schedules, and solving countless small crises. She watched, learned, and absorbed everything she could. Most importantly, she began to see the industry from a different perspective. One day, while helping to coordinate a complicated scene, Sarah found herself suggesting a different camera angle to capture the emotional resonance of the moment. The director, initially skeptical, tried her suggestion. It worked beautifully. That moment was a revelation. Sarah realized she had a natural eye for visual storytelling. Over the next few years, Sarah worked her way through various positions in production. She discovered that while she loved acting, she had a natural talent for directing. The skills she had developed as a waitress, multitasking, staying calm under pressure, managing different personalities, translated surprisingly well to the chaos of a film set. Her journey wasn't without setbacks. There were projects that fell through, relationships that strained under the pressure of her growing career, and moments of doubt when she wondered if she was on the right path. But each time she faltered, she remembered Eastwood's words about persistence and self-belief. 5 years after that fateful morning at the diner, Sarah Martinez stood behind a camera, directing her first independent film. It was a small production, but it was hers. The story centered around a small-town diner and the intersecting lives of its patrons, a love letter to the place where her real journey had begun. Sarah had written the script herself, drawing from her years of observing life from behind the counter. The main character was a waitress with deferred dreams, but the story wasn't just about her. It was about the entire ecosystem of a small-town diner, the regulars who came in every morning for coffee and conversation, the tourists passing through with their own stories, the kitchen staff working through personal dramas while keeping the orders flowing. The production was a challenge from start to finish. The budget was tight, the schedule was brutal, and every day brought new problems to solve. But Sarah discovered that her years of watching films with her father had given her an innate understanding of visual storytelling, while her time as a waitress had taught her how to handle pressure with grace. When her film premiered at a small festival in Carmel, Clint Eastwood was there. He sat quietly in the back row, watched the entire film, and was the first to stand and applaud when the credits rolled. Later, at the modest reception, he found her in the crowd. "Not bad for a waitress from Arizona," he said with that familiar half-smile. Sarah's story spread through Hollywood, not because it was sensational, but because it represented something fundamental about the industry that often got lost in the glamour and glitz. Behind every success story, there's usually someone who took a chance on a dream. The note that changed Sarah's life now hangs framed in her production company office. Below it, she keeps a waitress apron in a shadow box, a reminder of where she started and how far she's come. But more importantly, it's a reminder of the day she learned that sometimes the biggest dreams come true in unexpected ways, and that kindness from a stranger can ripple outward in ways we never imagine. Patricia Glover became more than just a mentor to Sarah. She became a close friend and eventually a producing partner. Together, they started a mentorship program for industry newcomers, particularly focusing on helping people transition from service industry jobs into film production. They named it the Corner Diner Initiative, and its motto was simple: everyone deserves a second act. Today, Sarah makes it a point to visit Carmel's Corner Diner whenever she's in town. She sits in the same booth where Eastwood sat that morning and always leaves a note with her tip: keep believing in your dreams. Sometimes she includes her business card too. After all, as she learned from one of Hollywood's greatest legends, success isn't just about climbing the ladder, it's about reaching back to help others up too. The story of the waitress and the movie star became something of a legend in Carmel by the Sea. It's whispered among aspiring artists who serve coffee and clear tables, a reminder that dreams don't have an expiration date. But perhaps more importantly, it serves as a testament to the power of small acts of kindness, how a simple note written on the back of a restaurant receipt can change not just one life, but create a cascade of opportunity and hope that touches countless others. Sarah's transformation from waitress to director challenges our conventional narratives about success in Hollywood. We often think of making it in terms of overnight success stories, of being discovered at the right moment by the right person. But Sarah's story suggests a different kind of success, one built on adaptation, resilience, and the willingness to let our dreams evolve. In an industry often criticized for its hardness and hierarchy, Sarah's story stands as a reminder of the human connections that form the real foundation of Hollywood. It's not just about talent or luck or being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes, it's about a legendary actor taking a moment to see the person behind the apron, and a waitress brave enough to keep believing in herself even when her dreams seemed to be slipping away. 10 years after that morning in the diner, Sarah returned to Prescott to screen her latest film at her old high school. Her father sat in the front row, beaming with pride. After the screening, she told the students gathered in the auditorium about her journey. "Dreams don't always come true exactly as we imagine them," she said. "Sometimes they come true in better ways than we could have planned." Years later, when asked about that morning in the diner, Eastwood would simply shrug and say, "Sometimes you just know when someone has that special something." But for Sarah Martinez, that morning wasn't just about being discovered, it was about being seen, truly seen, by someone who understood that every great story has to start somewhere. And sometimes, that somewhere is a small diner in Carmel, with the fog rolling in from the Pacific, and dreams waiting to be awakened by a simple note on the back of a receipt.